are now excited to move on to our next session on Investment Spotlight, where we will be discussing the role of startups and large enterprises in attracting angel investment inspired by Shark Tank concept. Please welcome Mr. Pawan Hora, director and co-founder of Wishbox Studio, who will lead this engaging discussion. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Pawanji? Pawan Hora is a historian by background and a public relations consultant by profession. Over the years, he has partnered with impressive roster of clients from corporate giants and retail leaders to boutique hospitality brands, e-commerce platform and NGOs. At Wishbox Studio, his vision is to lead a peer consultancy that masters media outreach and strengthens brand identity. Joining Pawan Hora are Ms. Shivani Khare, Portfolio Manager of Fart Capital Operations and Partnerships. Can we have a huge round of applause for Ms. Shivani? Shivani is a head of portfolio and partnerships who helps early stage startups move from first check to rapid scale. She has chaired dozens of founders post funding rounds, forged investor connections, and aided founders in their growth plans turning into reality. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Gautam Jha to please come on the stage. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Gautam? Gautam Jha, representing the O2 Angel Network, is the founder of Venator Minds Private Limited. He helps early stage founders in their GTM and fundraise strategy. He organizes startup networking events across India. With over 2 decades of experience in brand creation and promotion, Gautam is guiding idea and seed stage founders in their brand strategy. And next, I would like to invite Mr. Ashwani Verma, Peak 15, ex-director leader. Can we have a huge round of applause for Mr. Ashwani? Mr. Ashwani is a transaction lawyer with 16 plus years of experience. He has advised on more than 500 rounds of investment and 10 IPOs across India, US, C and MENA region. In his last role, he worked as a director legal of Peak 15, formerly known as Sequoia Capital India and C. Currently, he is building an invest tech platform automating processes.
Thank you so much, lady, and a very a big thank you to all the members who have joined here today this morning for this very interesting session. In fact, when Himani asked me that, Pawan, how can we add a little more value to what we have been doing over the last few years with them? Been proud to be the PR partners for the World Gift Expo with her for the last couple of years. And I realized that I have a couple of friends who are in this space, and I've seen the breathtaking work they do, the kind of inventions they are doing in the product space. But somehow it's not reaching out. It's reaching out to the audience through, of course, the various brands, which, of course, then buy the products from them, and you, of course, go and get them during your Diwali time and your corporate gifting time, or when you pick up your liquor bottles at the duty-free shops. But I realized there has to be more to it. So I thought, why don't I create a panel of some people who can shed a little more light as to how this unorganized sector, if I can use that term, looking at this expo, you know how organized it is, right? In terms of the size, but how this sector can benefit from quote unquote this entire gambit of funding. And that's the reason we have got these 3 panelists here today. All 3 come from different streams, of their professions. And the good part is that all 3 will shed light on one very unique aspect of this entire funding ecosystem. So since funding has the word fund in it, let me start with Shivani. Shivani, because you had the portfolio and partnerships at FARD, and I was telling Shivani that I am also an investor with some of the startups there for a brilliant platform there. First question would be that what differentiates the early age startups that secure follow-up funding from those who struggle, post their first check? I'm sure you must have seen so many. And that's the reason why I'm posing this question also is early age, because a lot of guys who are coming here are probably the first generation, gift companies. And they want to scale up. They want to scale up big. So what do you think is that differentiates them? Yeah.
Great. First of all, thank you for having me here. Coming to the question, the journey of 0 to 1 is very different for a company from the journey of 1 to 10 and then 10 to 100.
So true.
Now, when as a fund we are putting in money and we are coming rightly said at the early stage, we are either in your journey of 0 to 1 or 1 to 10. That's what we call early stage nowadays. Now, we look at scalability. If I am investing and as a fund, I would be betting on my returns in maybe a couple of years, or if it's for a longer number of years, then I have to see how much scalable it is. Now, gifting as an industry, we're seeing it's becoming a sector now. Earlier, it was very small. Almost today, all the consumer brands have gifting as an area of revenue coming in. So everyone has it. Gifting as a sector of earning money, one vertical where you get good money during, say, these marriages, festivals, etc. Some peaks of the year. Now, talking about an industry which is a sector running on emotions, the scalability, where I'm putting in money, is very, very important to us. And the ones who are able to raise the money for the first time, good enough. Everyone is able to raise money. It's not very difficult because the demand is there. You have a matured market. You have good interest of Gen Z, millennials. Almost every age group has their interest. But the journey from upwards, 1 to 10, let's say, or make it more bigger, that depends on how well you execute things. The supply chain is managed because riding high on emotions. You have to deliver the product at the right time, to the right person, the right place. And everyone is able to give at the similar cost. A lot of options you have. So scalability and the way you're going to execute it are the two prima facie things which differentiates an early stage company from the ones who are able to raise further rounds in a VC ecosystem.
Brilliant, brilliantly put, Shivani. And the one key takeaway for me, which you mentioned very interestingly here, was the fact of gifting being a revenue stream for companies.
Yes.
That is something which would be music to their ears out here. Who are all the vendors are sitting here supplying these amazing gift products to companies. Now, now that we have talked about the funding part, we all know that the advocate is always the devil. We'll talk to Ashwini now. So Ashwini, tell us, with your experience across 500 plus, investment rounds which you guys have led in your various roles before, what are those key areas which one person should be very, very careful as far as the legal framework is concerned? We all know and we have all heard about stories where big giants, smaller companies, mid-level companies, startups which showed a lot of promise have faltered just because that earlier part, the watertight compartment, which we say in terms of legal framework, was not taken care. So what are those little things which the audience would like to know? Definitely.
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for having me here today. See, like any other company, any other business, whether we call it gifting, manufacturing, whether you're offering it in the form of, say, gift cards, which a little more regulatory sensitive from RBI perspective. But the basic Companies Act compliances continue to apply to each of these products, services you're offering as gifts. So basics have to be in place. The next step of compliance comes into play depending upon what you are manufacturing, what you are trying to sell, and then if there are any services elements involved here. Cross-border gifting, RBI gets involved, FEMA gets involved. Gift cards, now whether these are closed-ended, open-ended, wallet connected, or if once again any foreign remittance is involved here. From tax perspective also, once again, very sensitive depending upon the value of the gift that you are providing. Some entitlement or some gifting is tax-free, tax-exempt. The moment it breaches certain value, certain threshold, even the tax authorities are looking at you from a different angle, different eye altogether. So basics, as I said, Companies Act, then depending upon your product, your service, if you're manufacturing something, obviously labor law, the Factories Act compliances, those become a little sensitive. If you are providing a service, then if it's there is a financial angle involved, there is gift card, some money is involved, then RBI may get involved, international transactions, cross-border gifting, then once again FEMA may get involved. So it largely depends on the nature of the business. But simple things first, Companies Act and your labor law related compliances, which are paramount in India. Now, if you want to raise foreign capital, then once again, FEMA, your FDI policies, they also come into the picture. If you are raising money from a foreign VC or even angel investors who are based out of India, then you first of all need to ensure that your sector in which you are specifically operating, the product, the service you are offering, it permits either say 100% foreign direct investment or if there are any, say, approvals or prior, permissions required to raise foreign capital, those are in place. Yeah, largely this is it, but more a matter of discipline and keeping the basics in place.
So true, Ashwini. And the reason why I asked that question early on was because, like I mentioned earlier also at the start of discussion, that most of the guys whom I have met, even they're in the second or third generation companies, they've been running it like a family-run business, right? So when it comes to structuring, legal framework becomes a very big part of it. And we all know so many investors actually feel deterred just because of that. They see a lot of potential in the company, they see a lot of potential in the person, in the invention, what they're trying to curate. But when it comes to the paperwork and how things in terms of compliance and all what Ishwini was just mentioning, that's the reason that. Thank you so much for enlightening us. Anything else you want to add?
No, yeah. So just to add one more point, and the importance of institutional investors. All the VCs sitting here, they also play this important role of keeping their portfolio companies informed. Don't want to say the term force, but they push their portfolio companies to follow these compliances, arrange all the resources which are required, or I would say think tank knowledge, whatever is required to train their portfolio companies to be in a better shape from a legal perspective.
Thank you so much, Ashwin. Thank you so much for that insight. Now, Gautam, over to you. Just wanted to ask you one thing. You obviously specialize in organizing these beautiful networking events, for startups. And just to let you know, you see a different man behind. Gautam is, of course, representing Hotel Chetan. Couldn't join us today because of some issue in Bikaner where he was, for some personal reason. But Gautam was gracious enough to confirm his presence in a couple of hours itself. So, Gautam, one thing which everybody, and in fact, the comparer was sort of inviting us to the stage as well, talked about the Shark Tank style, pitch style, which is happening, right? I know there is a lot of murk behind that thing as well. I mean, we all know that pitching has been happening ever since, right from the Jagat Seth time. People have been investing in different companies, right? But what do you think? This entire, so there's a good side, we all know, right? I mean, there is a lot of talk and a lot of conversation around the ecosystem of funding because of something like this. But what do you think that has the Shark Tank style pitch culture which has developed, because you organize events, has it changed the investment patterns, or it has helped to change the investment patterns, especially keeping the tier 2, tier 3 in mind, because you organize events all across country, not just in metros. So what's your take on that?
All right. So first of all, thank you for having me here. Today morning when I woke up, like he said, I had no idea that I'm speaking at GIFTS Expo. I was about to prepare for my event, which is tonight in Ghaziabad. But then, yes, here I am. That's what fate does to you.
And really thank you for that.
And sitting with such beautiful people on the stage. The best thing that Shark Tank has actually done to the Indian startup ecosystem, that it has made the Indian startup ecosystem startup as a matter of, as a home thing, it has taken it into your bedrooms, So let's say you go back 5 years from now, और आज से 10 साल पहले, to all grey-haired people, अगर अपने पिताजी को कहते कि यार मेरे को ना पापा बिजनेस करना है, तो when I used to tell my father कि मेरे को धंधा करना है, पापा कहते यार वो बनियों का काम है, हमारा काम नहीं है, तो तुम तो बेटा पढ़ाई करो, नौकरी करो, शादी करो और सेटल हो जाओ, खत्म करो उसके बाद जिंदगी. तो now Shark Tank का जो the most precious thing that Shark Tank has done is that every household knows what startup is, what business can do, and if that 18, 19, 20-year-old girl or boy standing on there in the TV and talking about $1 million or crores and equity and talking to people like Aman Gupta or Lenskart person or the other sharks, they say कि ये हमारा वाला भी कर सकता है. Okay. Now let's see the art of investment, the thesis of investment. The thesis of investment has nothing to do with Shark Tank. It is pre-COVID and post-COVID. Pre-COVID, every Tom, Dick and Harry, every startup founder who used to dream about startup, there was a possibility of that person getting funding somewhere or the other. Bada, chota, jo bhi hai. But today, the investor network has become very, very, very shrewd. I will use that word. Become very choosy. They're very careful in their investments. She will be a better person to tell you on this. But when I see there, they will buy your equity only when they are confirmed that someone else is going to buy that particular equity 2 years, 3 years down the line at a 4x, 5x, 10x, 15x, 20x, 60x, I don't know how many x's valuation. Only then will you get money today. It has nothing to do with product, industry, breaking something, building something really big. All that is good for the sake of discussions. लेकिन पैसा तभी मिलेगा शुद्ध हिंदी में जब आपका अगला बायर उसको खड़ा दिखेगा. That is the case. If that does not happen, you don't get money. Now comes to the art of pitching. Sir, it is an irony that 70+% of the people who pitch on stage actually do not know how to pitch. The initial pitch deck is 48 slides. So I tell them ki boss, there is a difference between pitch deck and project report. Pitch deck should not be more than 10 slides, 12 slides maximum. Investor के पास इतना टाइम नहीं है. ये नहीं देखेंगे 48 स्लाइड्स छोड़ो, दिनेश तो क्या ही देख लेंगे. और एलपी तो मतलब देखता ही नहीं है, उसको तो मतलब ही नहीं. उनको तो ये बताना है कि हाँ भाई इतना वैल्यूएशन है, ये है, ये है, ये है. ने ask her if I'm she will you see a 48 slide pitch deck? No. No. So to all the founders here who might be pitching, who might be preparing for pitching, 4 मिनट से ज्यादा नहीं चाहिए आपको. I was sitting with a investor from US who had come to India. His name is Anshuman Sinha. So Anshuman Sinha says one thing very nicely. He says, if a founder cannot explain me his whole idea and business on a tissue paper, I will not invest money into him. That is how positive of time is. Yeah. So this is what Innergist is all about.
Thank you so much.
इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आज घर जाके सब टिश्यू पेपर निकाल के उस पर आइडिया प्रैक्टिस करने लगे.
नहीं, Gautam, I'm sure. I mean, there's a term in English called the elevator pitch or a 2-minute pitch or whatever you call it. But this is what the reality is, guys. It's not about they don't have time. It's about whether you can impress them in that first go or not. Plain and simple as that. And I totally believe in this because I am not just on this side of the spectrum doing marketing for companies. I also invest in companies. Always remember that when you get a funding, he's investing in you, not the company. Company investments happen when you are in that round of a few extra zeros have added. Then he will look at the term sheet and all. Right now he's looking at you. Right now he's looking at your vision, what you feel for your own company, whether you invested 120% in your own company or not. This was a very interesting twist which you did, Gautam. So while Shark Tank has its role to, like you said, and like what he's saying is so true. 10 years back, 15 years back, when I started my journey, you're talking about rounds and stuff like that. From ET के अखबार में आता था, Mint में आता था, वहीं पढ़ते थे और वहीं खत्म हो जाता था. CNBC, Shireen मैम आती थी और वो बोलती थी. But now today, even my Masi, who's a homemaker at home, she also knows who Mr. Aman Gupta is. This is what the power of what Shark Tank has done.
Yeah. So my 12-year-old daughter, my 16-year-old daughter, who's in class 12th, it's Shark Tank. तो मतलब आज 16 साल की हुई है. She was 12 when Shark Tank started. तो she started giving me ideas कि पापा ये ना ऐसे होना चाहिए, वो ऐसे होना चाहिए, ये ऐसे होना चाहिए. अच्छा आपकी कंपनी बन रही है, मेरे को कितना equity मिलेगा? तो now that is the impact that it has.
Excellent. At least the terminologies have started flowing. So it brings to the next question, Shivani, to you. And this is something which is where he ended his conversation actually on the investor side. Okay. Because again, we are talking to young entrepreneurs here, people who would like to have early age, investments here. What do you think are the key elements in a founder's pitch that signal long-term viability to angels beyond the Shark Tank style. So one is, of course, what he has already mentioned, the fact that it should not be very long, you would not be looking at. But what do you think is required, when it's a founder-led stuff? I mean, initially, of course, founder-led stuff. What are those key elements which a fund like FAR is looking for, so that when these guys prepare their pitches, they can prepare it better?
Right. So there could be many elements. I'll just pick a couple of them which create a profound impact when we talk to founders. As a fund, as a portfolio manager, I talk to founders who are part of a portfolio. The first time entrepreneurs, someone who have been running businesses and still now are going around the VC route. The first and the most basic thing is common sense that we look into. The most सबसे ज़्यादा छोटा and basic thing. The reason I'm saying common sense is because lot of people, especially the first time entrepreneurs, they think that something has worked in the West, we can just replicate. It has a market.
It's so true, so true.
Yes, it will work in India as well, because already we have a good number of people here, and we have good Gen Zs. मतलब the exact number of Gen Zs in India is equal to the population of entire USA today. So it's very easy to project कि इतना बड़ा market है, it has worked, that can work here. So the basic common sense is कि what works West not necessarily would work here. That's the basic sense that you need to have. Second is, a lot of people in this space, taking gifting as industry in our conversation here, then they see this is the trend going on. They pick up that trend and create a business model around it. That's the second turn off for us. The reason is trend abhi hai. It's for a moment, couple of months. We are looking at your insights after few months what will happen, after few years what will happen. A founder really need to understand how dynamics would change, and the person has to be very, very, very adaptable. Startup is a risky business. You are taking someone else's money and putting bet on what could happen. It's not sure that it would happen. You're running on high risk over there, and you would run out of cash. You would again raise money, maybe debt, maybe some kind of finance coming in from banks and other NBFCs coming in. You are taking money and burning it on certain risk. So the basic point of adaptability is what we look in the founders, how soon they can pivot, how good they can use the common sense into that pivot, and adapt quickly to the changes happening. Because one thing, it's very famous right now, it won't even make sense couple of months down the line, because everyone is doing it. Everyone is copying products, ideas, everything. Innovation is not necessarily going to drive the business. Innovation is fine, but your business acumen in executing things fast, quick, pivoting and then executing again is what we look. So these 3 to 4 aspects is a must. वो basic है. Before pitch deck happens, before we talk about the financial projections, numbers, the products, what industry you are in, what is your service market segment, couple of factors that we judge a person on, and that's after that the other conversations happen, the valuation, how much you are raising, those are secondary conversations. Trust me when I say this, वो पहली conversation में आता भी नहीं है. These factors come into picture the first thing when we talk to you. In first couple of 5-10 minutes, understand you as a person, then other things come into picture.
Thank you so much, Shivani. In fact, I was thinking of leading a question towards Ashwini, but I'll come to you, Ashwini. I have to go back to Gautam on this because she ended on a very interesting note. So, Shivani, you also have to realize, right, a lot of these guys, especially the tech guys, straight from गौतम हम वही बात करते हैं, हम बिहार से आते हैं तो हाँ भैया आपने 12th तक पागल की तरह पढ़ाई की, बंदा 12th में दिखता भी नहीं है बाहर वैसे
तो पैदा ही आईएएस होने के लिए होता है.
एग्जैक्टली आपने आईआईटी किया एंड देन सडनली आप किसी टेक मोड देते जाते हैं. एंड so one thing which I think is a very important part of what Gautam does is also to enhance the networking ecosystem. Okay, now and that's the reason when you were talking about some of those aspects don't get also developed because of this. They know their product, okay, but because they have not gone ahead and actually have too many sounding boards around them. And it's not about sounding board going and pitching the idea to somebody, but just sharing. I mean, how many times have we come to networking events, met people, just shared an idea and suddenly get a wonderful insight from the other person, right? So tell me a bit about the networking culture here in the startup system, because this is another term, Gautam, which flies a lot, right? I went for a startup networking event without even knowing what real networking means, right? But then you organize the event. So you know the purpose behind organizing such events. Please shed some light on it before I come to a legal question. Ashwini, of course.
So, yeah. So I've organized events in Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi NCR for sure. But I've also organized events in Patna, Nagpur, Jaipur, Bhopal. Recently, last Saturday was Pune. I'm doing Lucknow next week. Now, the fact is, when you go out for networking, remember one thing, that your network is your net worth. Okay? Till today morning, I had no idea of the all three people. Today, since I have come here, now we are best of friends. मुझे मेरे अगले इवेंट के लिए गेस्ट मिल गए. इनका सीनियर है आदित्य अरोड़ा, उसको पकड़ना नेक्स्ट टू इम्पॉसिबल काम है. अब मुझे ये मिल गई है, तो अब फाट मेरे इवेंट्स में होगा, मुझे पता है. Karan and Dinesh do not go to events. So this is how actually you grow. Now let's say, sir, today, Pawan, the thing is that the people. It's only been thrice or four times that somebody has called me and said, "Ki Gautam, I want to come to this event, but I have no idea what to do. I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to start a conversation." Now, this person sitting there, I know she is an investor with some huge deep pocket, but I don't know how to go and approach her. I have no idea. But that has been just 4-5 people in the last 3 years. Otherwise, most of them are actually, they are very well, they know how it is out there. I'll give you an example of the, of the level of and the amount of networking events that happened today. So today we are here in Gifts Expo, which has a very decent turnout. Right at this moment, there is a networking event happening organized by their partner agency, which is called Angel Bay, owned by Saurabh and Piyush in Gurgaon. In the afternoon, today, StartupNews.fyi has organized a pitching seeds summit in Collative Saket. I have my event today in the evening, which is a cricket match between Investors 11 and Innovators 11 in Ghaziabad, KIET Ghaziabad. Now that brings me to that the invitation is open to all. Please do join us. You can find me on LinkedIn or वहाँ पे invitation मिल जाएगा. Any which ways. So all 4 of them has good turnout. There are people who go out to these investor, they keep weekends for networking. But the fact of the matter is, going there without any agenda will be a waste of time and waste of money. Some of them are paid, some of them are non-paid, that does not matter. So whenever you go for networking events, you go there with an agenda. Research what kind of people are going to come there. Those people, what is that event about? Is it a D2C event? Is it a gifting expo event? Is it a deep tech event? So if you are a D2C person, why should you go to a deep tech event? If you're a deep tech person, why should you go to a health tech event? Or can you supplement the health tech people? Okay. So now do your research and understand who all are there. Then when you enter that whole arena, there are probably 200 people in one room or 300 people in one room, and you have mere 60 minutes or 120 minutes at the max. You cannot meet more than 30-40 people in 2 hours. If you give them at least 2 minutes each, not more than 30-40 people is who you will be able to meet, and not more than 10 people will you be able to remember. So target who you want to meet. Who's the person that you're wanting to meet? What is he doing there? Where is he? What will he be talking about? So these are some things, if you actually do it right, you'll be able to get maximum out of it. Which most of the people, the Gen Zs, the millennials, or even the Gen Ys of ours, or I don't know what Gen are we, probably some S, Q, R, A, B, C, D, I don't know. But any which ways, people are doing good. And I can tell you, let me tell you one thing very frankly, Gen Zs are not less than grey-haired people in the room who have been doing this for ages now. They know how to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
They seriously know how to do it.
I couldn't agree more with
Yeah.
you, Gautam. And see, so when you are mentioning about 4 events happening in the city, all four very well attended by people.
These four I know.
Of
There
course.
are many more.
Yeah, I'm talking about this right now. This is our ecosystem, so we're discussing this right now. So and that's the reason. I mean, that's a good twist to the question to Ashwini now. So Ashwini, while a startup founder today has to, like Shivani mentioned, has to be very clear, has to have that common sense, has to be focused as to what he's doing, needs to know exactly all the parameters of his business. The way Gautam reflected upon that, has to be a good networker, and in his view and in his this thing, most of them are. I've also met them a lot of things, but what you're saying, Gautam, had a lot of relevance. Knowing where to go, knowing whom to meet, knowing what to speak and how much. Now that brings me this question to you, Ashwini. So you think that the kind of busy ecosystems startups are or have become, quote unquote. I don't know how much is the reality there, because I run a business as well which has 40 plus clients. A lot of work happens, but नेटवर्किंग के लिए जो थोड़ा बहुत वक्त मिलता है निकालता हूँ. लेकिन अगर इतना बंदा बिजी रहेगा, if you're so busy, so you think this जो invest tech platforms आ रहे हैं, do you think they will have a future now going forward to the way startups manage their funds, or how would they deal with this readiness if they are so busy all the time? So do you think the invest tech platforms which are coming in, trying to just help them sail through the journey by having another app on the phone, taking care of the legal framework or taking care, do you think that thing, or human intervention is still required?
See, there are multiple factors here, which can play. One, in every team, every individual is supposed to play a certain role. If one founder or say one of the founding team member is taking the role of building the network, you will always need someone who has to execute. Just knowing someone without a product, without good service, without execution, and running a company is not a joke. At the end of the day, you have to connect so many dots, bring everything together. You can go ahead and spend certain time to find the right person who can give you leverage or that connect which can take you to the next level. That's understandable. But if that's the only thing you are planning to do or planning to focus on, that's the end of the business. That's for sure. You will have a network. People may remember your name, but maybe not for the right reason. Okay, sorry. And the second question was invested platforms. See, the final answer comes down to the same, simple thing, which is execution. Whether you are raising money through an invested platform, by approaching individuals personally, or through LinkedIn, or through your alumni network, because I have seen a lot of 18-year-old kids just out of IIT. Oh, sorry, not 18, 22-year-old kids just out of IIT, and raising millions of dollars as pre-seed round, either because of the network they had, the alumni, people they had interned with, the companies they had interned with. So sometimes even a small episode, small meeting, small internship, that can give you like massive results. You need not actually go to all these networking events. They are important, but not for everyone. If you already have a product, have a service which investors are interested in, you need not go and attend 50, 100 or whatever number of events, maybe not even one single networking event. 10 years back, 12 years back, we never used to have these kind of events, but startups existed. They did really well. And today, obviously, they are household names. I doubt if Dipender would have gone to a networking event 13, 14 years back. He started executing. Same thing with Ritesh from Oyo, right? He started selling whatever he could, started getting like those minimum number of properties as and how he could, instead of, attending some networking events. So end goal is execution, developing your product, providing that service, customer satisfaction, and then moving ahead. But yeah, now what has happened with the evolution of the ecosystem? There are 1,500 odd VCs, micro VCs, or family funds which are operating in this country. Everyone doesn't come from a background where access to even these kind of people on, say, LinkedIn or through personal connect is easy. So they have to attend these kind of events. They have to reach out to them directly, cold calling, cold emailing. Everything is required. Sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't. If you have a good product, your first attempt will may also click and do wonders for you. If the product is suffering, the service is suffering, then you can keep meeting as many people as you want, but you're unlikely to nail it.
So true, Ashwini, and thank you so much for that insight because, and that's what I think Gautam was trying to say, that even if you're going to a room full of 500 people, you should scan the room first. You should know whom you're meeting. Of course, if you're somebody from Boston, MIT, Harvard, one of these places, of course, the doors open much faster because you have, and that's the reason you'll see these groups working in silos. At one point, when I remember Gautam used to be a PR guy earlier, so he must be knowing when we started our journey at 20 years back, I think 21 years back, he started. At one point, NDTV, all the guys were from Stevens. Every person. I remember 21 years back when I started my journey, every person, right from Barkha to Pranay Roy to Anand Srinivasan, everybody is from Stevens. So I'm not saying that they were biased towards it, but that works. When you're part of a stronger alumni, that works for you. So if those who you are, absolutely you do.
So
Go on,
networking then used to be, if I'll tell you, in the Delhi arena, I don't know how many people have you been there, but there used to be a place called Achini mein hua karta tha. There was a bar.
100% rock.
Huh?
100% rock.
है ना? So
Wednesday nights, media nights.
Wednesday media nights was to be there. So I've got Barkha Dutt. I've met Barkha Dutt there.
All of them.
She
all
used
of
to
them.
be after 9 p.m. Most of these big time, news people were there. So the point is, you should know who you want to talk to. You should know where will you find them, and you should know what is the message that you want to deliver.
Yeah.
3 things very important.
So true. Thank you so much. One last topic which I want to raise before we get. So we have got a very interesting thing going on today. Once the session, another 5-10 minutes, we'll wrap it up. We'll have these 3 companies which are representing themselves at the World Gift Expo. In fact, we'll come and do a little 4-5 minute little pitch in front of the 3 of them here. But before I get into that, so till now, Shivani, Gautam, Ashwini, thank you so much for those brilliant insights. We have talked about founder-led companies. We have talked about the person, the legal framework and stuff like that, okay? But there are lots and lots of people who also come with partners, right? And we have seen a lot of companies going right there and going right down just because a partnership has faltered, right? So I wanted to just take your feedback on this particular aspect. That what's your advice to the room here, or what's your advice to those guys who are probably the best of friends, who have been working for the last 2-3 years together, want to scale up, but things they should be very, very clear on when they come and pitch, considering you. Second, when they go out and network, or they go out and meet people, different people in the events, what do they should talk about when they're talking about partnerships? And third, of course, one of the biggest problems, which we have all seen social network. You know what happens. The Facebook is the biggest example right now, right? Shivani, I'll start with you and then we'll finish with Ash. Please go ahead.
Right. So this is pretty tricky one. We have invested in, yes, couple founded.
Part is a partnership, yeah. So of course, it's a tricky one for you.
Yes, absolutely. So we have invested in companies where there have been 2 or more founders. They have been friends since childhood, maybe met in college. And we also have events where you have founder speed dating. You meet your co-founder in an event and then you build a business with them. You happen to also find a co-founder in the market for a specific, complementary skill, which you might not have. We have also put in money where couples, husband, wife together, have started the business. So there are all sort of partnerships here. But understand one thing, whosoever are the ones, you have done a marriage there. Jisme divorce ka koi option nahi hai. It has to be there till the end. Till the time company is there, there's no option of moving out. Even so, if there are scenarios where things go sour, things go north and south, I think Ashni would better explain the legal angle to it. We do give a lot of emphasis on the documentation, the legal procedures. We also keep an eye कि अगर कुछ गलत हो सकता है in future, तो what would be the exit route for individual people and what harm or effect would it bring onto the business. Now just imagine the person who understands the product well, वही चला जाए company छोड़ के, how is the business product going to run? Even if you have CBO, you have marketing people, you have finance people, but the one who actually built the product, let's say a tech company, the CTO only leaves the company, then how are the other things going to function? So we do take a personal note on the kind of relationship the people have, the founders have before putting in money. Business plan is fine. People are intelligent. They might have good degrees to back them. They might have, scaled and sold their businesses as well. But relationship between people is a prima facie. Far Capital, the organization I belong to, it itself has been founded by two friends from diverse background. One is engineer, one was a medical practitioner. So the understanding the dynamics between the relationship dynamics between the founders of key important, because and the other thing is that they have to be very complementary to each other. If someone is good in tech, the other would be good in sales, the other would be good in operations or marketing. So you have to find the adequate partner जो आपको complement करे, and then you have to make it a path that has to last. And for the worse, you have to, as there's a trend out, the people sign prenups before the wedding. Agar kuch bura ho jaye. So from the legal standpoint, as investors, we also see if a prenup is ready, in case things go bad in the startup, we have to protect our investors' interest, our money interest. The company's interest comes above everything, no matter who you are, how good you are, the long relationship you have with your co-founders. The company's interest, the business interest stands above everything. So everything is centered around it. And nobody is above the company. So your relationships, you have to put your ego aside, you have to work, you have to cooperate, take things into action. That is very, very important to us. And whenever we put in money, specifically the late stage companies, we see that, people have, come into the company at the founder position, have also exited. Sometimes a person who has been a core member of the company has been promoted to a co-founder position. We have seen all sort of situations happening. Typically in the 5-year journey or 10-year journey, and all these dynamics are taken into aspect before investing and post investments as well. What your role would be, what the definition of your work or trajectory would be with the company, and how long you're going to stay.
Thank you so much, Shivani. The question was asked specifically for this reason, because while we are talking about early age new companies and stuff, there are certain, and I'm sure a lot of companies out here who might be partnerships, and if they are interested in raising funds tomorrow from outside, going to a VC, what are the things which they should be taking care of? So one was, of course, from the caution. We'll come to caution once again, of course. But what about you, Gautam? I mean, you must have seen partners, of course, going and somebody selling London and somebody talking Tokyo. How does it impact, and what's your message towards those kind of guys?
Finding a co-founder is more crucial and difficult than finding a life partner. आप अपनी जिंदगी खराब कर लेते हो वहां पे, बट गलत को-फाउंडर के साथ आप औरों की भी जिंदगी खराब करते हो. Now, I'll tell you one very important aspect of who a co-founder is. A co-founder is not just your childhood chuddy buddy, not just your life partner, not just your friend from another networking event, not just your friend from college, not just a person with a complementary skill. A co-founder is somebody who invests his hard-earned money into your business. Very simple. If he or she does not invest into the business, there is no skin in the game. कल को उसको नौकरी मिल जाएगी. मैंने देखा है ये. I have seen, I have heard people, and people have told me that, we were 4 founders, out of which 2 got a job in Big Four and they left. And now they are not giving me back my share. They want कि मेरे को आज के डेट के हिसाब से, after 3 years of leaving, आज के डेट के हिसाब से, you give me remuneration, you give me, you pay back me of the equity. So that is also the case. Now let's say, talking about my aspect, which is networking or reaching out to people. I'll give you an example. When you see Shark Tank, how many of you have seen Shark Tank pitching?
I'm sure all of them.
Yeah? Okay. How many times? So many times there are multiple people on the stage. Okay? They're all co-founders. Okay? There's some made co-founders on the stage also. Example, Naru. But the main talking is being done by one person. Not necessarily the major shareholder, but primarily the CEO of that particular company. You can call him founder, you can call him co-founder, you can call him anything, but he's actually the CEO representing the business part of it. When comes a technical question, the technology guy comes into place. When comes a finance question, the finance person comes into picture. If there is something which is legal in nature, the legal person, if he's there on the stage, comes into picture. So the fact of the matter is, a marriage runs nicely only when there is compatibility between both husband and wife. Here, a company will run nicely only when there is clear understanding of who is doing what, who is replying to what question, who is supposed to talk about what point. Is when you do that, is when you'll be able to do that. So if you are a finance person and you start talking about the technology, you know what will happen. And if you are a technology person, you start talking about sales. Khatam. So yes, you should know what you are liable for. You should know what your role is. And अगर हिंदी में कहूँ ना, तो अपनी औकात से बाहर जाने का नहीं. That's it. That's how it is.
Thank you so much, Gautam. I see this is a hard-hitting rule. I'm sure if there are partners sitting here, don't look at each other with disdain now. The reason why I brought this topic up, because I've seen companies faltering, really faltering on the marketing front, and Gautam will definitely agree with me here, because they fight for things like voice share as well. Who's going to be on the interview? Who wants to be on the front page of ET, or who wants to go and do an interview in CNBC? And believe me, what happens, all those ego clashes lead to the decline of the company. And what Gautam said is so true, that आप गलत जीवन साथी चुनते हो तो अपनी जिंदगी खराब करते हो, आप गलत co-founder चुनते हो, so there are a lot of people at stake.
I'll give a very classic example of this company sitting here. Now, this company, Fard, is one of the largest finance companies today in India. They are one of the most, they're one of the best funding companies today in India, with 450 crores. 450 crores of SEBI approved fund. Started by two people, no one from finance. One is a medical practitioner, the other one was engineer, I just came to know. Neither Dinesh nor Karan. Now what did they do? They were all both, I don't know why, but they were all could not be seen in the social arena somewhere. They had one smart kid in their, in their team, Aditya Arora, who joined in as an intern right out of the college. Aditya Arora was actually promoted as the Fard guy. And he has done a wonderful job for the company. Not many people know that Aditya Arora is not one of the co-founders of the company. He's the CEO of the company. I also didn't know till 2 years of my friendship with him. That is what it is. If Aditya has been given a job of going out and talking about Fard and listening to the pitches, selecting companies who will come back and pitch them in their boardrooms, Karan and Dinesh do not go out and do that. They manage it back end. They manage LPs, they manage their, whatever their daily businesses, but they don't go out in the... That is what the job role and the responsibility should mean. ये किसी लीगल डॉक्यूमेंट में नहीं लिख सकते. आप नहीं लिख सकते कि आप अगर इवेंट में जाएंगे तो आप सिर्फ टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करेंगे, आप सिर्फ फाइनेंस की बात करेंगे. नहीं लिख सकते. This has to be an understanding between the founders. So...
Brilliant. Thank you, Gautam. And thank you so much for ending on the legal bit, because that brings me to Ashwini, of course, who will talk about the legal bit. See, Ashwini, we all know, we have talked about the human side of the partnership, right? We have talked about the ego side of the partnership. We have talked about handshakes and those dreams set in college together. Kuch bada karenge, boss. You want to become, Larry Pages and Swarovski of the world. But like in reality, में जब आप शुरू करते हो कुछ या कुछ बना हुआ है उसको आगे लेके जाना है, so there is a trail of paperwork which is required, right? Now, what are those key things which you of course you must have witnessed examples like what Gautam and Shivani they have also mentioned that you have seen good companies faltering because of that. But legal point of view से अगर बात करें, और अगर उसमें एक से ज्यादा को फाउंडर भी होते हैं, 3 लोग भी होते हैं, 4 भी लोग भी होते हैं, तो अपार्ट फ्रॉम द ह्यूमन साइड और द role assigned tribe which these guys have mentioned, from the legal point of view, what should be definitely be taken care of, one, and second, वो क्या चीजें हैं जो पहले से ही सेट कर देनी चाहिए ताकि आगे जाके in future things do not falter.
Sure. See, first thing, founder separation, founder exits are far more common than you may even imagine. Most of the companies, especially when you see, young college grads just moving out, 4 friends, 5 friends, a couple starting a venture, a lot of things can go not as planned, not expected, and then someone may prioritize the business and the other one may start looking for a job, like he rightly mentioned. So separations happen like quite often. Every VC also has to deal with it. They have to step in and get the problem solved because equity is involved, vesting is involved, and early stage founders may hold significant shareholding in their individual capacity as well. What's the golden rule? Have tough discussions as soon as possible. Like, this is human nature, especially when there are 2 or 3 friends or like a couple starting a venture.
देख लेंगे.
We'll see, when we reach there, and that moment never comes. It actually never comes. We'll always see one founder taking lead. Because if I ask, like, even openly here, a lot of you may not even know who were co-founders with, like, in some companies, like with Dipinder in Zomato. Does anyone know his co-founders?
I know
Few people.
you guys saw the transition from Foodieway to Zomato.
Or even with Ritesh, or with Baiju Ravindran, or Bhavish Agarwal. Everyone knows them. They are somehow associated with the brand or with the company. Nobody knows their co-founders. So you need to have that tough discussion first. Who's going to do who do what? Who's going to lead what? Governance rights, board seats. Who's going to take calls? Who's going to have investor discussions? And then when a company does well, there's a lot of media attention. There's a lot of PR. Whose face will show up in all those articles? Again, it can't be like good always. There will be bad PR also. Then you will be targeted. You will be targeted on social media, print media, news channels. So you should be prepared for that. But at least there should be clarity. Who will be the face of the company or the brand? Now, to deal with this situation, there are 2 things which can happen. One is pre-investment. The other one is post-investment. Pre-investment, from a documentation perspective, there is something called founders agreement. All it does, it actually lays out very clearly what percentage of equity you would be holding, what rights you would have, say board seat, if there's decision making process in relation to one aspect of the business, then who can take that call, who would be the signing authority, how the money will move in, how the money will move out, all sensitive discussions which you generally don't have. People are afraid of discussing these things with their spouses. So friends having this discussion, where all it can go to. And when you start this discussion, say at a much later stage, then any of the co-founder can come up and say, I never thought so. I thought we were all equal partners. There are no equal partnerships unless you specifically write it down. Post-investment, very different. VCs know this is going to happen with every 3rd, every 4th company. As I said, it's so common. The documents have been structured in a way that you deal with most of these situations. Answers, or at least the procedures, are set out upfront. Some founder is leaving in some specific time. There are clawback clauses, there are vesting clauses. How that equity would go, because see, if one founder is moving out, most likely you will get another one. Another one, you want skin in the game again. So some equity has to be given to that individual. Where will that come from? So you take some from the exiting founder, move it on to an incoming new founder. If you don't need another co-founder, then that may even go to the ESOP pool, because someone will have to step in to fulfill the exiting co-founder's role. So you may hire a few more CXOs, some senior employees who will have to do the job the exiting co-founder did. Because any large shareholder on the cap table, maybe with or without governance rights, who doesn't have any interest in the business anymore, because he's out of the company effectively, he's not running the business, but he's still on the cap table. It can derail the business, it can derail the entire day-to-day working of the company. So that's why, like, post-investment, VCs take care of it. pre-investment, sometimes that journey is say 6 months, but it can run into a couple of years if you're not able to raise external capital, or the intent is not to raise external capital. Then please have a founders agreement at least in place. Have that tough discussion. Very important. And as I said, it's not just limited to co-founders or like friends as co-founders. Even couples starting businesses, very common. Something can go wrong in their personal life, which may have an impact on the business too. So once again, if they both don't see eye to eye, they both don't want to work together, you can't write that down in an SHA or in a shareholders agreement. This is what is going to happen when you separate in your personal capacity. But at least when from an equity perspective or a control perspective, if you are not interested in the business, then at least post SHA, you can deal with some of those terms.
Thank you so much, Ashwani. That brings us, we are drawing curtains on this session, guys. And see, the reason why we not just talked about the good things about funding, we talked about the things which really matter. So the idea of this session was to let some of you guys know, of course, the three guys will be now presenting their case studies here, that funding is not just about going, pitching, and getting the money. There are layers and layers and layers of trust, of communication, of egos have to be sidelined, legal frameworks have to be absolutely processed. And one thing which is my key takeaway from this session, which I think most of you will agree with, ask the tough questions first. Get things in order first, be it like Shivani mentioned about her pitch style, or Gautam laid such great insights on how the partnership should work and why the role definition is so important, and how Ashwini, sort of finished the session talking about the founders agreement and asking those tough questions or taking those tough decisions much before, anticipate and finish it off. So that draws, a curtain on our session today. Thank you so much once again, Shivani, Gautam and Ashwini, for joining us this afternoon. And I hope the session was interesting and insightful. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I would now request you to take over and then invite those three interesting startups.
Hello. Thank you so much, sir. It was such a knowledgeable and insightful session. Can we have a huge round of applause for all of them? Okay, so any exhibitor who wants to pitch, they can come on the stage, but one by one, I'll prefer.
I think
Please
the Rag gave me a list as well, if I'm not wrong.
No, we didn't got any list.
I didn't get.
No.
Please come. Let's see what she has to say and how we want to do it. Ma'am, would you like us to come down, or you like to come? Yeah, why don't you? Actually, this is interesting.
I think stage will be better.
Oh, this is very interesting.
You need
We have a mic for her.
mic also?
Yeah.
Or
Just a stick.
we are having the mic.
I can be without the mic also.
I'm timing you.
Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Liza, and I'm so sorry I didn't know about this pitching session till just 15 minutes back.
Oh, even better.
And so it was insightful to listen to all of you, and I made my mental notes at that time. So yeah, I'm Liza. I run a social enterprise called Choti Si Asha. To understand a bit about Choti Si Asha, I'll just take you through the timeline. I started Choti Si Asha with just an intention to connect at the grassroots, nothing else. And to basically connect and solve or become a part of whatever I'm doing. And I came across women who were from rural backgrounds, settled in urban areas, who practice great crafts as hobbies at home and were looking for, empowerment. And I felt that empowerment through livelihood would be a big change that we can get into their lives. And so we started upskilling them on the crafts that they were already practicing. So, in urban settings, a lot of women come from different regions. So there's UP, there's Punjab, there's embroidery, there's kantha, any kind of craft all over India. Women are settled over there, and we started upskilling. At the other end, in the upper middle class, I saw a lot of young kids, my own son, connecting with characters like Harry Potter's and, Superman and all, and buying Chinese products and games and, all those things. And then there were some interesting games and products available in Fab India or, these kind of stores, but they're so expensive that you can't really, they were not accessible. And I was like, the crafts of India also have to be accessible to the new generation. So these were the two things that combined. And today, so Choti Si Asha is a social enterprise. We are moving towards that. And over years, I've spent years in consolidating the community. So we have like a community of 350 plus more growing women who are eager to take their products and take their craft knowledge forward. We have worked with so we are a small team of 3 people who are taking this whole thing forward. Our entire other team, like order processing, we are available online, or we have a website, all order processing, quality, everything trained. The women have been trained to take care of that. And so our organic growth in the last 2 years has been quite phenomenal. Our revenue last year was 72 lakhs without any marketing budget. This is organic. This is organic word of mouth. We have partnered with in Chandigarh, ISB we are doing institutional products for them. We customize for Ashoka University. Their merchandise is done by us. We have done work with pharmaceutical gifting for them. And now we have come to a stage where we need to pump in to do some marketing, to some sales, and make teams, maybe look for a co-founder as well with complementary strengths. And so this is where we are. If you can see our products are very contemporary. They are not like any other handcrafted products.
I've heard about you guys.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So so this is where we are.
There is a minute left. आराम से एक मिनट है आपके पास. मैं देख रहा हूँ.
हाँ जी, yeah. So I just wanted to let you know, this is now, I'm done with my story. So we started as a non-profit.
And when did you start? What was the year you started?
See, I'm a computer engineer by profession. I was working in the US, came back here just to connect with the grassroots. I had no desire to actually start something of my own. I believe I've always enjoyed solution providing, and that's what I do here also. Now I'm enjoying designing, and that also is like, pivoting, knowing.
So these are all designed by you?
By us. I always say it's collaborative by women of Choti Si Asha. They come up with it. This is like done by the group who does basket weaving. So they made this design. So we are doing a wedding gifting with this of different sizes, etc. So we do a lot of customization. Yeah, everything is hand done. But
Great. Thank you so much. A big round of applause to the lady, first of all. All for social enterprise, all for, in fact, just before our panel discussion, there was a discussion happening on Indian artifacts and, how to support the Indian artifacts, making sure that some part of your expense sheet should have something going back to the economy vis-a-vis buying from our weavers. And, I work with a lot of weavers in Banaras and in Baka. In fact, there's a company called Baka Silk from Patna, which only works with 300 plus weavers who have been doing silk sarees for the last 3 generations, doing very well. So great. I think it's brilliant. What we should do then with the organizers of World's Gifts Expo, you should take my details. I'll pass on and send me the pitch. I'll pass on to these guys, and wherever we feel like if we can connect you with somebody. I know some people in the ecosystem as well who invest in social enterprises. I don't know about Shivani. Of course, she'll take it up. You guys have not done. Yeah, exactly. Because the good part is that social enterprise today is no longer non-profit. You guys are
exactly.
While you are trying to solve that issue at one end of the spectrum, you're also making money, which is great.
Yeah, that's where we are trying to go, because it is hand in hand.
They should actually.
So that's awesome. Recently, I met a girl in Keet only in Ghaziabad. She represents an angel who's in US. He primarily invests into social impact businesses, and especially for women founders. He's coming to India on 25th. 27th is his networking event here in Delhi only. So we can stay connected. I will definitely introduce you on that day to that girl, and you can see there. And then
Manisha, if you can just share her details with me, and just share my details with her.
Yeah.
Just drop me a WhatsApp with your. I'm sure you must be having a small PDF presentation. That's about it. Thank you so much. This was very, very interesting, and you did a pretty good job in 5 minutes. Anyone else we have would like to come, sir? I liked it. This
Hello.
very interesting. I liked it. And I've heard about it. I've heard about it. Very wife.
Next, we have Roy's Innovation on the stage. Can we have a huge round of applause?
Yeah.
You need mic.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm not great in pitching, so this is the first time, first experience. I've been a banker for almost 15 years with HSBC. It's the first business which we thought of bringing it. My own preference in perfumes, and that's what my own likings. And I've been, traveling around the world for fragrances and I like them. So I thought of doing something. I found a gap in India. First of all, when you buy a perfume, the first thing people ask is, "Kitna de chalega?" What's the longevity and all? And that's where, we get stuck into. So I thought, why not bring in perfumes here? Because it's a 10,000 crore market here in India with 4,500 crore of organized market. So I thought it's a big gap. The perfume market is increasing about 15 to 16% CAG year on year till 2032. That's what is estimated. So I thought this is a opportunity for me to bring quality products at an affordable cost. So we bring Decoy perfumes to India, and we're pretty new. We're just about 6.5, 7 months old. Starting operations from January, but we start preparing about a year back with checking the people, what fragrance they like on the road, doing road shows and things like that for testing. Shot about 15-20 perfumes, then brought to about 5 which we launched, which people liked. So that's how we started. And currently we are operating in all leading e-commerce sites from our own website, one, Amazon, Myntra, Flipkart, JioMart. We also cracked Blinkit, the quick commerce, in about 3 months. We'll be entering the retail market with Reliance Smart Bazaar from next month. We are in a very advanced conversation with DMart and Lulu's Mall in the south. So that's going to be the retail entry at this point in time. So it's been very, fast forward for us in 6 months. Too many things happening around. And at this point in time, what we are and the reason why I'm here, still now we are bootstrapped, and I've been using my own money to get this thing popularized. We have about 300 plus ratings on Google, which is all 5 stars, flat 5 stars. We have 4.6 on Amazon on ratings. Now, the USP of this is we guarantee a 15 to 25% of fragrance oil in this, wherein other competition or the brands say up to 10%, 15%. This is backed up by certifications, which is on Amazon. It's a certification QR code on the website. People can download and see. And this actually makes it
So more oil means more last.
more oil means more longevity for the perfume, and that's the moat for this at this point in time. We're building on more opportunities and different things where we could differentiate from other brands on this. And we think that luxury should be also affordable and accessible to people. So I would like to show you a few samples. These are maybe you can try, but these are the 2 top sellers which we have.
And what are the sizes? 150? That's what you're doing is? Yeah.
This is the 100 ml size.
And what are the price points, buddy?
This is MRP at $9.99. We're selling at $4.99 to $5.99 on Amazon and Flipkart. This one is at $5.99 MRP. We're selling at about $4.99 to $2.99 on the offers and things.
Excellent.
And this is a small one, which is a 25 ml. You can try it.
And
This is a 25 ml pack. These ones, the oils are imported from France. We import these oils from France. These one Indian oils. And this has 25% fragrance oil into this. And this is something which we can just say it's going to be lasting more than 8 hours for this. So that's my short story about the Decoy, and that's why.
not bad. Not bad. And what have been the total sales, if I may ask, so far?
The total sales so far from March to here, we've been about 18 lakhs, but we project to be about almost a CR this inside financial, because we're also entering the retail.
Of course.
So that's a new something which has come up. And also, yeah, you can. Yeah, absolutely. Open.
And March up till now. So you're
Yes,
talking about
3 months.
3
Yes. At this point in time, I would say we are spending more money on advertisement.
Of course.
Because 40% is also going on our advertisement cost on Meta, Google, plus Amazon and marketplace costs. So that's what we're burning a bit at this point in time.
Where are you selling it more? In tier 2, 3 market or?
So far, we are on, tier 1 and 2, but the Reliance, the retail chains, we have taken less stores in tier 1. focusing on tier 2, tier 3 because
Makes sense.
they don't have accessibility of Blinkit and Swiggy and all these things. So that's the reason why that's a strategic decision which we kind of took.
Quite good. Quite good. And you're the only founder?
I am the founder. My wife is also a co-founder into it. I mean, she's a part of it. She takes care of the marketing, so the bottle designing, everything is what her.
Okay.
I look after the business expansion. We are taking over the strategic partner who will be taking care of, strategic investor, not a partner, who's going to take care of the retail, MT and GT part of it completely. And
Where are you manufacturing it?
so there are 2 units. These ones are in Greater Noida here, and those ones are from Baroda.
Okay, lovely.
Hi. So wonderful. I just want to compliment this man for his pitching skills. First 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, he said everything about his business. Problem statement, solution, market size, numbers, why is he into it, and just did not boost up, just did not waste time on any of these things. So first 2 or 3 minutes, if you happen to, listen to it very carefully, he just did not. He just gave 1 or 2 sentences on each of the topic. That is what actually an elevate pitch or even a normal first pitch should be. This is ideal pitching.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Sudha.
Can we have a huge round of applause for Roy's innovation?
Thank you.
Okay, just take my details.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll be more than happy to connect you with all these guys. But
Sure.
So the idea, guys, I mean, what we are seeing today here is not just pitching, but what just Gautam. So, just our feedback as to, where you are going right, where you're going wrong. What are those? I mean, now this is one category which has bursted in the last 5 years in India.
Absolutely.
I mean, there have been so many companies who have got into perfumes. It's not even funny. But surprisingly, 8 out of 10 companies whom I would have met in the last 2 years all have good numbers. So appetite is there. For the first time, I can say that the people of India want them to smell good, which is great. So appetite was always there, and perhaps these guys, because the way they are pitching, what quality of stuff they are producing and price point they're producing, I guess that's the reason it's reaching out to a wider audience. So thank you so much, and also Mr. Venture, just be in touch. More than happy to have a look at the
Absolutely.
tech and thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Can we have a huge round of applause for Roy's innovation?
Thank you so much.
Up to them, I didn't have a problem. Keep it also.
We're done now, I guess, or we still have.
So we have one more.
We have one more? Please. Oh, I love what you guys are doing.
I'll announce. And next we have Tanasia's B Collective on the stage.
Oh, beautiful.
Please give us 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
Just a couple of mics for them, I guess. So you can at least start them. Yeah.
Hi,
Please.
Hi, I'm Malini and this is Kunal and we are Tenacious Bee Collective, established in 2018 primarily to address the gap between the honey consumer and the beekeeper. So beekeepers are suffering because they don't get good returns for their money. Because they don't get good returns for their money, they're putting out shitty product into the market. The traders don't care. The traders who buy honey from them don't care about the quality of the product they're buying. So we are breaking that. We're disrupting that market by working directly with beekeepers. Kunal is a beekeeper himself.
So I'm a beekeeper and a trainer, and I am from Himachal. And when we started this, I met Malini, and I met Malini at a very different context. And the one thing that was problematic for me from the beginning, as a native Himachali, was the kind of pressure that tourism has put on our state, and the kind of destruction we see every year. And being a farmer myself, I didn't understand that what other options do we have. We have either we go into tourism or we go into government jobs. There's no third option. And growing up, I saw beekeepers. I had beekeepers as my neighbors also. So this is where it started from. And also when I met her, she asked me for honey, that you are from Himachal, can you get me some good honey? So I said, sure, I'll try. But when I went to find it, I saw that beekeepers were leaving the profession and the people in the cities were switching from sugar to honey, and there was a huge gap. And this was a problem for me because I couldn't understand why the producers are leaving the profession, especially when there's appetite. And we started researching and found out the prices that the beekeepers get are so minimal, like 60 rupees a kg is the current price for mustard honey in bulk.
60 rupees a kg.
Yes, Rajasthan, 60 rupees a kg is the bulk price for honey. So we thought, okay, we don't want to do this. We want to support them in whatever way. And then we started working with small beekeepers on just one small thing, that you have our numbers. You give us a call if there's a problem that you face. We'll see if we can figure it out. This is before we started the company, 2017. And beekeeping community is so niche, so small, that people knew that I am a Himachali living in Delhi. So people from Kolkata will message me that, sir, I am sending you a screenshot of my form. I want you to please print it and submit it to National Bee Board. You are in Delhi, you can do that. But I was also doing a full-time job, which is not possible for me to travel all the way and do these things. So serendipity happened, and we came together to start a company to help people figure out how to do this. Malini.
So, Tenacious Bee is a bee-centric company. We are all about creating systems and circular ecosystems around every beehive, so that you're not ending up exploiting the bees or over-harvesting honey. We are a premium brand. Our honeys are some of the most expensive honeys in the country right now. And we harvest small quantities of rare honey varieties from across the Western Himalaya. And our work is about empowering beekeepers to take care of the health of bees while they produce really high quality of honey for our customers. Instead of focusing only on honey, our idea is to create ecosystems of experiences, a wide range of products, as well as services around bees and beekeeping. So Kunal, as a beekeeper, goes to train private homeowners and farm owners to keep bees in their hives, bees in their farm properties. We create experiences in our village. We are located in a small village in Kangra near Dharamshala. We are creating a whole range of experiences around apitherapy and beekeeping in our village. And we are creating a wide range of products, including bee pollen, rare honeys. This is a fantastic new product we're launching this year, which is dehydrated strawberries infused in acacia honey. There's no heating involved, and it is the perfect substitute for unhealthy sugary jams. And we're hoping that people and mothers especially will love this for their children. So yeah, this is our summit. We're creating ecosystems around saving bees and making it profitable to save bees.
Of course. Fantastic. Big round of applause to these guys.
We established in 2018.
I love the packaging. What are the numbers? So what total numbers, total sales you have done so far?
So this year we've been very slow, but we have done around 16 lakhs. We've been in the village most of the time, and we had a very strong ethos that we don't want to work with certain extractive practices. So we started very slow. We established in 2018, but we spent the first 2 years, 2018 and 19, working with Himachal Pradesh University and Himachal Council of Science and Technology to identify areas across Western Himalayas where medicinal flower grows in abundance and where people actually need a secondary source of income. So we were looking at the producer side first. By 2019, we had amazing products lined up, and 2020 lockdown happened, and post-lockdown, everybody jumped into honey. So right now the market is very crowded, but we set ourselves apart by being the first choice of a lot of A-listers across India. We started a subscription model in 2018 where people would subscribe for 25,000, 40,000 for a year, and we'll send them a package. We do not have a lot of subscribers, but the subscribers that we have are people who value good product and are our brand ambassadors.
So that means you're selling only from your platform right now, or you are on other platforms as well?
So right now we are on few platforms. We are on platform like Brown Living. We are also now retailing with a lot of expats who have these small shops in Delhi, Pune, Bangalore. Japanese expats are one of our biggest customers. Embassies are our biggest customers. We have also started retailing with food stories in Delhi, Bangalore, and Hyderabad.
How much are you trying to raise?
What we are trying to raise right now is around 3 CR. And major focus is to build a team. Right now, our team, from the professional aspect, is both of us and our operations manager. Everybody else we work with is from the village that we have trained. This is the first paying job that these people are doing. So we need people who can help us build systems, because we are also, learning by doing. So we need a solid team to help us do these things.
And how much have you valued yourself at valuation?
So we haven't done that. We haven't valued ourselves on numbers. We don't believe, I know we live in a capitalistic world and we need to think of numbers, but but we believe in how much impact we have done in the past few years. And we have trained a number of beekeepers. We have
No, we totally believe in it. Believe me. I mean, I love the packaging. I love what you guys are doing. That's fine. It's a real need. What Gautam is asking, see, because the moment you say you want to have 3 crores in your coffers tomorrow, the first question which an investor will ask is, "Was मुझे मिल क्या रहा है उसमें?" And see, capitalism is a faltu ka bastardized word. It is supposed to be there because without capital you can't grow. So all the good things which you want to do for the beekeepers or for the ecosystem can only happen when someone pumps in money. You know it, I know it. That's why we are sitting here, right?
Yeah.
So when you ask for 3 crores, what he's asking simply ki boss, equity kitni direct karoge? So if you say that, okay, I'm valuing my company at 10 crores and I'm asking for 3 crores, that means we know that, okay, you're looking at a 33.3% or whatever that is, right? So ye sawal tha inka.
So let's understand one thing, founders. Most of the founders at this stage do not have an idea, they do not have an idea of what they should value themselves at. Yeah. You need to understand one thing very, very seriously and early on. Is this kind of a fundraise through equity? You want someone, some fund, some network to actually buy a share of your company and give you the money. Now, that share of the company, you buy something at a definite value. It could be anything. It could be 10 crores, it could be 1 crores, it could be 100 crores, it could be whatever. That is not important. But you need to understand is, where do you stand? There are professional valuers out there, So, obviously, and that has to be a justifiable amount. It cannot be anything. Yeah. So I've come across a company who were earning 2 crores annually and they valued themselves as 200 crores. Battery manufacturers.
Thinking that was the next year.
मतलब वो मुझे
and nothing wrong in that. Believe me, we are not trying to be sarcastic here, but what we are trying to simply tell you, Malini, is that when you're asking for something, like say for example, you're asking for a certain price for this product, right? But I know what I'm getting in return. Similarly, if you're asking for this thing, the first and foremost, I mean, when he asked the straight question, you knew the number what you're asking for. But be prepared with that. And if you need any help getting somebody who can value it properly, sit down with you, talk about the market semantics, kya chal raha hai, iski scope kya hai. Because see, this is something which is going to explode. It has already exploded till a certain level and it's going to explode further. So, but the product is great. All the best. And again, just send me the details. Pardon? What are you saying? Yeah, absolutely. We're through.
So I'll also request all of you to please come to our stall right here so you can taste some of our honey.
Would love to. We're just about to get over now. The session stretched a little more, but really, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being
Thank you, ladies.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to you all. It was such a wonderful session, such an amazing session.